It is finished. You've heard those words 100 times. Easter Sunday, sermons, wooden signs in Christian bookstores. Said in a hush, like a sigh, like a man giving up. That's not what happened. He didn't whisper it. He cried it. Not the fading voice of a man whose body was shutting down. The voice of a man who just finished something. Something he was sent to do before the world had a name. And the word he cried, one word, was this: Tetelestai. English translators took that one word and turned it into three. It is finished. Three words you've heard so many times the weight wore off, like a coin handled too often. Today, we put the weight back on. Because once you understand what this word actually meant, it won't sound like a last breath. It'll sound like a victory cry, one that's still echoing. Let's go in. Before we start, I need to speak to someone. You've been carrying something. Not anything dramatic, not a testimony moment, just a low, quiet weight. The feeling that you haven't earned it yet. That before God really moves, before you can stand in front of Him without bracing yourself, there's something more you need to do. Pray longer, try harder, clean it up first. Maybe it's guilt from years ago, confessed 100 times, never fully gone. Maybe it's a version of yourself you keep leaving behind and keep going back to. And underneath all of it, one quiet belief: the debt isn't paid yet. Stay with me, because in a few minutes, I'm going to show you that debt has a stamp on it, stamped 2,000 years ago, and the word on the stamp is Tetelestai. Let's go into the text. 6 hours on a cross. Crucifixion wasn't built to be quick. It was built to send a message, public, slow, a warning to anyone watching. But before John gives us the final moment, look at the verse right before it. Jesus, knowing that everything was now finished, John 19:28. He knew, not a victim, not a man who'd lost control of the story. He knew exactly where he was, inside a story that started before Genesis. He knew he'd reached the final moment. So with full awareness, in full control, he cried out, one word, Tetelestai. And that one word carries more weight than almost anything ever spoken. Slow down here, because everything is in this word. Tetelestai comes from the Greek verb teleo, T-E-L-E-O. It means to bring something all the way to its destined end. Not just stop, not just conclude. Carry it to the exact purpose it was made for. The root word is telos, T-E-L-O-S. Telos means a goal reached, a destination arrived at. Not the end of a road, the end you are always heading toward. So when Jesus says Tetelestai, he's not saying it's over. He's saying it has arrived where it was always going. But there's more. This next part is the whole video. In Greek, verbs have tenses, just like English. Most people assume Tetelestai is simple past tense, something that happened and is done, filed away. It's not. Tetelestai is in the Greek perfect tense, and the Greek perfect tense might be the most loaded grammar in all of Scripture. Here's what it actually means: an action completed in the past whose effect continues unbroken into the present and permanently into the future. Not just this happened. This happened, and what it accomplished has never stopped being accomplished. Past tense, it was finished, done, history. Perfect tense, it was finished, it is finished, it will always be finished. Hold on to that sentence, you'll need it later. What if finished isn't just something that happened? What if it's something still happening right now as you watch this? Because when Jesus said Tetelestai from the cross, he wasn't describing his death. He was declaring the permanent, eternal, and irreversible state of something his death had just sealed. The work was done. It stood done. It would always stand done. Nothing could undo it. Nobody could reopen it. The door wasn't just closed, it was sealed from outside of time. Now here's something that's going to land differently than you expect. Tetelestai wasn't only a theological word. It was used in ordinary life, every day, and that changes everything. First, it was a commercial term.
When a debt was fully paid, completely, totally cleared, the word stamped across the certificate was a form of this same word, Tetelestai, paid in full. The debt canceled, the obligation gone, the ledger closed. No partial payment, no remaining balance, no installment plan. Settled forever. Second, it was a military term. When a servant was sent by his master on a mission, he didn't come back until every part of it was done. Not mostly done, not almost there. And when he finally returned, having completed the full assignment, he had one word to report: Tetelestai, mission accomplished. Every part done, nothing left undone. Now, hold both of those in your mind at once. A debt paid in full. A mission accomplished. Now listen to Jesus the night before the cross. I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do. John 17:4. The servant, reporting to the master. And then from the cross, after 6 hours, the nails, the thorns, the mockery, the darkness at noon when the Father turned away, Tetelestai, mission accomplished, debt paid in full. The cross wasn't a tragedy with a footnote. It was the servant returning to the Father, having completed every single thing required, every last thing. Here's where the story opens all the way up. Because Tetelestai wasn't just the end of a crucifixion, it was the end of a conversation that had been running for 1,500 years. To understand what was finished, go back to Leviticus. God gave Israel a sacrificial system, not because he enjoyed blood, because he was teaching them something, slowly, for centuries. Sin costs something. Atonement requires a price. The price is blood. Day after day, year after year, priests offered animals, lambs, goats, bulls, morning sacrifice, evening sacrifice, thousands of offerings. And here's the detail almost nobody notices. The priests never sat down. There were no chairs in the tabernacle, no chairs in the temple, because the work was never done. Today's sacrifice covered today. Tomorrow needed a new one. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. A cycle with no final entry. Every morning the priest rose, put on his garments, picked up the knife, did exactly what was done the day before, would do exactly the same thing tomorrow. The debt kept accumulating. The payment kept needing to be made. What does it feel like to never be finished? That was the life of a priest under the old system. Once a year, the highest, most solemn day on the calendar, the high priest entered the Holy of Holies, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. He bathed, changed into white linen, went through purification for himself, his family, the whole nation. He took blood from a bull, from a goat, and walked through a curtain. That curtain wasn't decoration. It was a wall, 60 feet tall, 30 feet wide, so thick that teams of men working together couldn't tear it by hand. It was a barrier between humanity and the presence of God. And one man, one day a year, went through. Not to stay, to make the payment and leave, because the debt wasn't cleared. It was covered, temporarily, until next year. Hebrews puts it plainly. Day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties. Again and again, he offers the same sacrifices which can never take away sins. Hebrews 10:11. Stands. The priest stands, always stands, because the work is never finished enough to sit down. And then, Hebrews 10:12, but when this priest had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. He sat down. Two words that split history in half. After 1,500 years of standing, after 1,500 years of the same sacrifices over and over, never enough, he sat down, not covered for another year, finished. Tetelestai. One more detail, and this one is physical. The moment Jesus cried Tetelestai and bowed his head, Matthew tells us what happened in the temple. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Matthew 27:51. The veil, the 60-foot wall, the barrier no man could tear, torn in two. But notice, not bottom to top, the way a man would tear it, top to bottom. God tore it from his side. The barrier was never humanity's to remove. It was God's to open. For 1,500 years, one man, one day a year could enter that room. In a single moment, the door blew off the hinges, and it has never shut since. Hebrews says it like this: "We have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way." Hebrews 10:19-20. Not an annual ritual, not a high priest who goes in and comes back out. A person, Jesus, who went in and stayed, whose access to the Father is now your access to the Father. Any day, any hour, no ceremony, no middleman, because the curtain is gone. Tetelestai. Pause here and drop a comment. Be honest with yourself for a second. Have you been living like the curtain is still up? Like you have to earn your way in? Like the debt isn't paid yet? Tell me below. I read every single one. And if this kind of teaching, all the way down into the original language, into the world behind the text, is what you've been hungry for, subscribe. This is what we do here, every video. Okay, let's finish.
Now let's come back to where we started. To you. Because here's the thing about Tetelestai you can't intellectualize past. It's not just a historical statement. It's a present tense reality. Remember the Greek perfect tense? It was finished. It is finished. It will always be finished. Which means, right now, today, whatever state you're in, the debt is stamped. When a creditor received full payment and wrote Tetelestai on the certificate, that document couldn't be reopened. No court could revisit it. No creditor could come back later and say, actually, there's a balance. The stamp was final. And here's what I need you to hear. Your sin debt, every failure, every compromise, every version of yourself you're ashamed of, that debt was nailed to the cross. Paul says it directly. Having canceled the charge of our legal indebtedness which stood against us, he has taken it away, nailing it to the cross. Colossians 2, verse 14. The certificate nailed there and stamped over it in the blood of the Son of God, Tetelestai, paid in full. You don't owe anything more. Here's the mistake so many sincere people make. They keep trying to make payments on a debt that no longer exists. More performance, more striving, more self-punishment for something confessed last year, more distance from God because they don't feel clean enough to come close, more hiding, more trying to be good enough before they approach the throne. But you cannot pay on a canceled debt, not because God's too polite to mention it, because there's nothing left to pay. The system is shut down. The ledger is closed. The high priest sat down. What God requires, Jesus already provided, completely, perfectly, in full. It is finished. It stands finished. It will always be finished. The only question is whether you'll believe it. You cannot add to Tetelestai. That's the whole point. You can't improve what's already perfect, can't supplement what's already complete, can't earn what's already been given. What you can do is receive it. Hebrews says it this way: "Let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings." Hebrews 10:22. Full assurance. Not tentative, not braced, not hedging. Full. Confidence that doesn't come from your track record. It comes from His. Access that doesn't depend on how your week went. It depends on what was finished one Friday afternoon outside Jerusalem. What if the only thing left to do is stop? Draw near. Not when you're ready, not when you've cleaned up enough. Now, as you are, where you are. The curtain is torn. The priest has sat down. The debt is stamped. And the God who tore that curtain from the top down, who planned this before the foundation of the world, isn't waiting for you to become worthy of what He already paid for. He's waiting for you to believe He meant it. One more thing before we close. Jesus chose when to say that word. He wasn't dying when He said it. He said it, and then He died. John records the order exactly. When He had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." With that, He bowed His head and gave up His spirit. He said it first, then He gave up His spirit. He used the last of His strength to speak it because He wanted it heard.
He wanted it on the record. For every person who'd ever feel the weight of guilt, of shame, of never being enough. And the answer wasn't comfort, it was a declaration. Not, it's okay, not, I forgive you, try again. Tetelestai. Mission accomplished. Debt paid. Curtain torn. Work done. It stands done. It will always stand done. So go back to the beginning. It is finished. You've heard it said like a sigh, like surrender, like the end of something. It's not a sigh. It's a victory cry. Your name was in the accounting before the cross was ever built. The payment was made for specific people. And if you're here, still wrestling with this, still reaching for it, that's not an accident. People are drawn to the cross for a reason. So stop paying, stop proving, stop trying to close a gap that was closed 2,000 years ago. Come close. The way is open. The priest has sat down. And the word that opened the door, that shook the earth, split the rocks, tore the curtain, is still standing. Tetelestai. It was finished. It is finished. And it will always be finished.